She cheated on me, and this is how I found out about it. A photograph. A single photo in a folder of 52 professionally shot, family-friendly, preposterously curated pictures that were supposed to celebrate how happy we all were. It was a Sunday in early October, pumpkin patch season, hay bales, sweaters that made me sweat, and a photographer named Sage who smelled faintly of incense and said things like, "Lean into the laughter, not the lens." I was miserable. But Margot? She was thriving. She had that glow people talk about in maternity ads, even though our kid's almost 4 and I had vasectomy paperwork sitting in my inbox. She organized the whole thing. The matching outfits, the color palette, the appointment. She even told me not to wear my regular watch because it clashed with the rustic vibe. That was the first red flag. My wife has never once cared about the rustic vibe of anything. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Margot had these occasional bursts of overplanning. It usually meant she was stressed about work. Her boss, Alan, had been piling things on her lately, long hours, weekend emails, last-minute check-ins that somehow always ended with her pouring a glass of wine and needing to decompress alone in the bathtub. Fine. I figured she was tired. But then came the photo. I didn't see it right away. It took me a few viewings. The photos were uploaded into a shared gallery, all soft focus and smiles, a highlight reel of domestic stability. I clicked through them quickly, sipping my coffee and pretending to care. And then I got to the last row. That's when I saw it, something off in the background of one shot. Not front and center, just barely in the corner. A figure, a glance. Margot looking somewhere just past the camera, her expression strange. Soft, private, familiar, but not for me. And the man in frame, half a face, barely visible, but unmistakably Alan. At first I laughed. Of course I did. It was absurd. Who crashes a family photo shoot? Then I zoomed in. And the second I did that, I couldn't unsee it. There was something in her face, in his posture. Something I recognized not because it had happened to me before, but because every cell in my body suddenly understood it all at once. That sickly warmth in her eyes. That way his lip curled just slightly upward, not a smile, a claim. It felt like the room dropped 10 degrees. So yeah, that's how I found out. Not with a lipstick-stained collar. Not a text. Not a confession. Just a single image, a glitch in the frame, taken by a stranger with a camera, meant to capture our happiness. And instead, it caught the truth. The rest unraveled from there. And believe me, it gets worse. Much worse. If you'd told me a year ago that my marriage would start to collapse because of a pumpkin patch and a guy named Sage with a camera lens bigger than my kid's head, I'd have said you were out of your mind. But here we are. I'm Justin, 38, civil engineer. Pretty average guy, depending on who you ask. I like model trains, I grill on Sundays, I fold laundry in the living room while watching crime documentaries I pretend not to enjoy. I married Margot 10 years ago after she told me my sneakers were an assault on modern fashion during a friend's wedding. I proposed 2 years later with a ring I bought in a panic and a plan I scribbled on a post-it. We made it work. I thought we were good. Stable. Routine, sure, but not unhappy. And maybe that was the problem. Margot changed somewhere along the way. Not overnight, not dramatically, just little things. A new perfume I hadn't smelled before. A password change on the iPad. Those long sighs she let out in bed at night, like she was waiting for something that never came. But life was busy. We had Max, our son, jobs, grocery lists, school emails. So I didn't ask. Or maybe I didn't want to know. The photo shoot was supposed to be fun. A chance to look like one of those families on Instagram who spend their weekends drinking cider and pretending not to resent each other. Margot was so excited about it. She made a Pinterest board. She ordered me a neutral-toned sweater that made me look like a sad barista. She kept saying, "We need memories like this, Justin." Memories. I didn't realize she already had some. Ones I wasn't part of. The absurd part is how normal everything seemed that day. The dog ate half a scarecrow. Max cried because the grass was too pokey. I got stung by a bee and tried not to cry in front of a camera. And Margot? She smiled. She laughed. She rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "This is perfect. Perfect." Until I saw that photo. Until I saw him in the frame. That was the crack. The opening. And once I started digging, the rest of it came loose like drywall behind wallpaper. This isn't a story about revenge. Or even rage. It's about how you can live beside someone for years, sleep inches away from them, and still miss what's happening just off to the side, just out of frame. Until one day, the shutter clicks. And everything changes. We met at jury duty, of all places. Margot was wearing this oversized coat that made her look like she was trying to disappear into the fabric, and she kept sighing loudly every time someone coughed. We were in that holding room where time stands still and the coffee is somehow both scalding and cold. I cracked a joke about being legally dead inside, and she laughed, not just a polite chuckle, a real one. That laugh stuck with me. We didn't get picked for a case. We got lunch instead. Thai food, 2 blocks from the courthouse. She picked the place. Said it had the best drunken noodles in the tri-state area, and I didn't even like Thai food at the time, but I ate every bite. She had this dry, surgical sense of humor, like she could cut you with one sentence and then stitch you up with the next. I like that. She was sharp, opinionated, rolled her eyes at bad architecture and worse puns. It was refreshing. I was used to people who played it safe. Margot didn't play. She just was. We dated fast. The kind of fast that feels like skipping steps but somehow still makes sense. Within 6 months, I had a drawer at her place. By 9, we were talking about leases and what color we'd paint the kitchen in some hypothetical house. She hated beige. I learned to hate beige too. The wedding was small backyard, fairy lights, too much sangria. I remember she wore blue shoes under her dress because tradition's just peer pressure from dead people. I laughed until I spilled wine on my own collar. The early years were warm. That's the word I keep coming back to. We were broke and figuring things out, but there was this quiet partnership to it all. Dishes, rent, late-night grocery runs where we'd argue over cereal brands. We made jokes out of bills, sang to the dog, watched trashy reality shows, and pretended it was ironic. I thought we were building something solid. Not glamorous, not cinematic, just real. Max was a surprise. A good one. We weren't planning, but we weren't exactly not planning either. The day she told me, she left the test on top of a pizza box like it was a fortune cookie. I didn't know if I should cheer or panic. She cried, then laughed, then cried again. We stayed up all night making lists of baby names that we'd throw out later anyway. I remember lying there, her head on my chest, thinking, this is it. This is the story I'll tell when I'm old. We had our rituals. Sunday pancakes. Friday wine. Wednesday guilt about not doing yoga. She started leaving me little notes in my lunch bag after Max was born. Things like don't forget to pick up diapers or you're still the hottest dad in the preschool parking lot. We were a team. I believed that. Right up until the photo. Right up until I started wondering when exactly that we had split into 2 separate tracks. But before that, we were good. Sweet. Even. Which somehow makes all of this harder to accept. Because betrayal, when it comes out of nowhere, is a shock. But betrayal that's camouflaged in the good times? That's what messes with your head. That's what keeps you up at night, tracing the edges of every memory and wondering, was she already gone when she kissed me goodnight? Back then, I didn't know. Back then, I still believed in us. It started with the photo. That damned photo. The first time I saw it. I thought I was being ridiculous. I showed it to Margot casually, laughing, trying to be the cool husband. Hey, I said, pointing to the corner of the frame, isn't that your boss lurking in our hayride happiness? She barely looked at it. Oh, yeah, I invited Alan. He was in the area. He just dropped by. Dropped by? A pumpkin patch 2 hours from the city? I nodded like that made sense, but my stomach tightened. Something about the way she said it, flat, a little too fast, like she'd rehearsed the line. Like she wasn't surprised at all that he appeared in a candid family portrait like a low-budget horror movie villain. That night, she initiated sex. And I mean initiated full contact, intense, like she was proving something. I should have been happy, but I felt like a suspect being soothed before interrogation. The next morning, I checked her phone. Look, I know how that sounds. I never used to be that guy. But once you start doubting someone's smile, you doubt everything that comes with it. And Margot was glued to her phone lately. Always with that private little smile, the kind you wear when no one else is in on the joke. Of course, her texts were clean. Suspiciously clean. Like hotel bed white. Too organized, too empty. That's when I realized she had a second phone. A work phone. One she kept in her bag. One I never touched. I waited until she was in the shower. I knew the passcode, our anniversary, ironically. I found messages to Alan. Nothing explicit. No nudes. Just dangerous normalcy. Alan, I can't stop thinking about the way you looked yesterday. Margot, you shouldn't say that. You really shouldn't. Alan, then tell me to stop. Margot. No reply. That was her tell. She always said silence was a decision. I started digging deeper. I traced the dates of her late meetings and compared them to our shared Google Calendar. She hadn't been at work half the time she said she was. One Thursday, she'd apparently been at a team building offsite, except I found a hotel receipt in our junk drawer for a place near the river. 2 people. Room service for 2. A breakfast tray with 2 mimosas and a charge for extra towels. It was under her name. She never even bothered to hide it. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I became an actor in my own house. I kissed her forehead like it didn't burn. I said, I love you with teeth clenched so tight my jaw ached. I pretended not to notice that she was humming in the kitchen again, smiling more, looking at her phone with that soft, secret look. I thought I could catch her. I thought if I had enough proof, I could throw it all in her face and get some kind of justice. But the truth is, I wanted her to confess. I wanted her to look me in the eye and say, yes, I did it. I chose someone else. I lied to you. Instead, I got something worse. Max had a stomach bug. We were up all night. Margot was on edge, snappy, pacing. I told her to get some rest. I'd take care of it. She left her laptop open. I wasn't going to check it. I swear I wasn't. But I walked by it on the kitchen island and saw a file name flash up in recent documents. PTO request, Florida, March. Florida? We weren't going to Florida. I opened it. It was a form. Vacation days requested. With a note at the bottom. Joint time off with AH, cleared by management. H. Alan, her boss. I scrolled through her emails. She had confirmation for flights, a hotel, a snorkeling package, a rental car. No mention of me. No mention of Max. The trip was in 3 weeks. I stood in the kitchen, holding a baby monitor in one hand and reading her vacation plans with another man on her work laptop, and something inside me cracked, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet fracture, like glass under slow pressure. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay there beside her, watching her breathe. In the morning, I printed the photo, the one with Alan in the background. I taped it to her coffee mug and put it on the counter. She found it. She froze. She looked at me, eyes wide, then narrowed. All I said was, "You're not good at hiding things, Margot." She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just nodded. Slowly, like she'd been waiting for this moment too. That was the climax. No screaming. No broken plates. Just the sick, quiet truth between us in the morning light. A photo. A glance. And everything came undone. It's funny how the mind replays things differently once you know the truth. Like watching reruns of your life with a new director's commentary turned on. Suddenly, all the things you shrugged off become clues. All the jokes she made about office happy hours or just crashing early morph into confessionals wearing Halloween masks. She didn't tell me everything, but I learned to read between her silences. Alan, the boss, the man in the photo, wasn't just a name in her email signature. He was the one who sent her playlist at 1:13 a.m. with songs titled things like The Way You Look Tonight. I found them on her Spotify. There was a private playlist called After Meetings. Their songs. I listened. I shouldn't have, but I did. I sat in my car, engine running, and listened to their soundtrack on repeat like some idiot studying for an exam I didn't sign up for. She told him things she didn't tell me. In emails, in text snippets, and little voice notes I found buried in her Google Drive. You make me feel like I'm still allowed to want things, she whispered in one. That sentence hit me harder than any naked photo ever could. She didn't want me anymore, not because I wasn't enough, but because I'd stopped being new. When I was home with Max, feeding him strained peas and cleaning crayon off the walls, she was slipping off her wedding ring and stashing it in her glove compartment. There was even a routine. I found it laid out in a draft she never sent. Hair up, nude lipstick, ring off, coffee breath, smile like it's normal. She was meticulous. She booked 2 back-to-back conferences in different cities. The first was in Denver. I found a note in her notebook, pack white blouse, not the one Justin likes. She knew which version of herself to wear, depending on the audience. She'd turn off her location on her phone. Battery saver mode, she'd say. Once, I asked why she came back wearing a different blouse than the one she left in. She said Max had spit up on it the last time, and it was bad luck. I believed her. God, I believed everything. There was a Sunday when she said she had to run errands. She was gone for 4 hours. She came back smelling like rosemary and cedarwood. Said she'd been testing candles at that overpriced store in the mall. I didn't ask why she didn't bring any back. The truth? She was with him at a spa resort upstate, in a rented robe, sipping cucumber water while I changed 3 diapers and fought with the garbage disposal. I found photos. I wish I hadn't. They weren't explicit. Just her laughing, her in sunglasses, her holding a wine glass on a balcony I didn't recognize. In one, she was looking directly at the camera, lips parted slightly. Happy. Relaxed. Like she wasn't married. Like she didn't have a child asleep 200 miles away. And in that moment, I realized something ugly. She didn't just cheat on me. She cheated on the version of herself she was with me. She carved out a second life, one where she could be light and flirtatious, where no one asked her to remember to buy string cheese or book a pediatrician, where no one cared that the heating bill was overdue. She got to be the woman she used to be before Max, before marriage, before reality. I thought I was the foundation of her life. Turns out, I was the layover. It's not the sex that haunts me. Not really. It's the space she made inside herself for someone else, quietly, carefully, while sitting beside me on the couch, laughing at our son's knock-knock jokes. She fooled me. But worse, she wanted to. Here's the thing no one tells you when you get married. Love does not protect you from betrayal. If anything, it makes the betrayal more likely, because love gives people access to your routines, your blind spots, your trust. Love hands someone the keys to your inner life, and then turns around and says, please don't break anything. And sometimes, they do. When I started looking back, really looking, I saw it. Not just the things she did, but the mind behind them. The switch that must have flipped. The quiet calculations. The emotional distance dressed up as distraction. People don't cheat because they want more sex. That's surface-level nonsense. They cheat because they want a different version of themselves. A reboot. A fresh edit. My wife didn't just stray because she was bored of me. She was bored of who she had become with me, tired, overwhelmed, invisible. So she created a second character. One who wore satin, not sweatpants. One who flirted over tapas instead of arguing about laundry. One who could press pause on the monotony and feel, even briefly, like she was still the lead actress in her own movie. And me? I became background noise. Her supporting character. Steady, dependable, familiar, which, in her world, translated to forgettable. That's the psychology of it, isn't it? Cheating isn't always loud. It's not lipstick on collars or bedsheets that smell like cologne. Most of the time, it's subtle. It's emotional withdrawal. It's laughter that stops reaching the eyes. It's excuses that arrive a few seconds too quickly. It's absence, even when they're physically present. You ask if something's wrong. They say they're just tired. They're always tired. They spend more time on their phone, but turn the screen away from you. They guard their devices like they're protecting state secrets. They suddenly care more about their appearance, not for you, but for some invisible audience they won't admit exists. There are signs, always signs. We just don't want to see them. Because once you see them, you can't unsee them. And the moment you admit that the person you love might be living a parallel emotional life, you're forced to face what that means for everything you've built. But here's the worst part. When someone cheats, it's not just your trust they break. It's your sense of reality. You start questioning your own memory, your instincts, your value. You wonder if every good moment was a lie, or if they simply stopped loving you while you were still loving them. You realize you could be lying next to someone every night and still not know who they are anymore. And that's what betrayal really is, not just an act, but a shattering. A quiet devastation that keeps echoing long after the confession, long after the confrontation. It's the part of you that starts to wonder, what else did I miss? Who else have I been wrong about? I don't know if she ever really planned it. Maybe it started as nothing. A glance, a joke, a shared moment in a fluorescent-lit office that bloomed into something unspeakable. But once the door opened, she walked through it willingly. And me? I was on the other side, still waiting for her to come home. People think the worst part is finding out. It's not. The worst part is what comes after. After the arguments, after the silence, after the crying and the gaslighting and the apologies that sound like negotiations, after the begging, the blaming, the days when she said, it didn't mean anything, and the days when she said, I think I needed it. That was worse. I didn't leave immediately. Maybe I should have. Maybe any self-respecting man would have. But I didn't. I stayed because we had Max. Because we had a mortgage. Because I didn't want to unravel the entire fabric of my life over one grotesque thread. But the fabric was already frayed. We tried therapy. It was hell. She cried a lot in front of strangers. I sat there like a shell, watching her perform grief over a life she chose to detonate. The therapist said things like rebuilding trust and shared accountability, and I wanted to laugh. Shared accountability? What? Because I didn't notice soon enough. Because I loved her while she drifted off into Alan's arms? Alan got a promotion. Of course he did. Apparently, the company handled it quietly. She told me he ended things once rumors started spreading, which somehow made her feel like the wounded party. He cut me off like I was nothing, she said once. As if I was supposed to comfort her. She wanted sympathy from the husband she betrayed because her affair didn't end with a rom-com ending. They didn't ride off into the sunset. They didn't burn it all down for love. They just imploded silently, like most forbidden things do, leaving behind awkward meetings, erased messages, and a woman who suddenly had no one to text after 9 p.m. As for Max, we stayed together for his sake for about 7 months. 7 nauseating months of sleeping in separate rooms, of pretending at birthday parties, of smiling through clenched teeth while strangers complimented our beautiful family. Kids know. Don't let anyone tell you different. He was 4, and even he knew something had cracked. Eventually, I left. Quietly. No scene. No yelling. I packed a duffel bag and a few favorite toys, and I moved into my brother's basement. He had a fold-out couch and a half-broken espresso machine. I remember thinking, at least no one here lied to me. Margot stayed in the house. She wanted it. She wanted everything. But she never really got it back. Not fully. Not like before. She told me she cried herself to sleep every night. That the silence was louder than my anger. I didn't tell her I'd stopped crying weeks ago. I'd reached the dry part. The part where grief calcifies into indifference. We share custody. I see Max on weekends and 2 weeknights. We're figuring it out. Slowly. He doesn't ask about why we don't live together anymore. He just holds my hand tighter now when we watch cartoons. As for Margot and Alan, she says she hasn't spoken to him in months. I believe her. Not because she deserves belief, but because the way she says his name now, bitter and embarrassed, tells me that illusion shattered for her too. So that's how it turned out. Not with fire, but with fizzling. No revenge. No poetic justice. Just consequences, day after day, in the quiet, ordinary way life doles them out. She cheated. I found out. And now, we both live with the fallout. But only one of us still lies awake, wondering how they managed to ruin something that once felt untouchable. If you're listening this and it's happened to you, if you felt the floor vanish beneath you from one text message, one glance, one sentence that changed everything, I want you to hear this next part carefully. You're not crazy. You're not weak. And no, it's not your fault for trusting someone you loved. There is no shame in being betrayed. The shame belongs to the ones who knew what they were doing and did it anyway. The ones who looked you in the eye after, knowing they'd already lit the match behind your back. I used to think betrayal was black and white. Good people didn't cheat. Bad ones did. But life isn't tidy like that. It's all gray, and grief lives in those gray spaces. The truth is, people are deeply flawed. Some cheat to escape. Some cheat because they can. Some because they're too emotionally stunted to ask for what they need. Some do it out of loneliness. Some out of ego. And some simply because they never thought they'd get caught. But no matter how it happens, the pain it causes is real. The confusion, the humiliation, the hollowed-out feeling of wondering, was it all fake? Was I just a placeholder until they found someone else to feel alive with? Here's what I've learned. You will survive. And not just survive. You'll see more clearly than you ever have before. Betrayal opens your eyes. It strips away the illusions. And while that feels brutal at first, it's also strangely clarifying. You begin to recognize sincerity in others more easily. You learn to listen to your gut. You stop romanticizing crumbs of affection. You stop twisting yourself into knots just to keep someone who clearly doesn't want to be kept. You'll cry. A lot. In stupid places, like the car or the cereal aisle or in the middle of brushing your teeth. But then, one day you won't cry. And that will be the first real moment of freedom. And if you stayed too long, or forgave too much, or still miss them even now, that doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. It means you loved with your whole heart. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. What they did reflects them. How you heal reflects you. I don't hate Margot anymore. I really don't. Hating her kept me connected to her. Now I just feel distance. A calm, neutral absence. Like a room I used to live in that's no longer mine. To anyone else going through this, you will get through it. You'll rebuild. You'll laugh again. You'll feel trust slowly grow back inside you. Not because someone else earns it, but because you do. You become your own safe place first. And when that happens, when you realize betrayal didn't break you, just rerouted you, you'll look back not with bitterness, but with quiet strength. Because you're still standing, still living, still choosing to love, smarter, slower, but still open. And that is something no one can take from you again. It's strange how ordinary the end feels. No explosions, no dramatic speeches. Just a Tuesday morning, me standing in the kitchen, pouring cereal for Max while the kettle clicks in the background. She's not there. The silence isn't loud anymore. It's just quiet, familiar. We exist in parallel lanes now. Polite texts, calendar reminders, the occasional tired smile at school events. She's still Margot, technically. Still Max's mother. Still someone I once kissed under fairy lights at our wedding. But she's no longer the woman I look for in a crowd. That part is over. I see things differently now. Not just in her, but in myself. I'm not the same man who laughed off a glance caught by accident in a photo frame. That version of me, naive, proud, unshakable, is gone. But I don't mourn him. He needed to go. Now I see nuance. I see the small fractures that were always there. The way we stopped touching, not all at once, but in inches. The way we avoided hard conversations until silence became a form of survival. And I see my own reflection with more honesty. I wasn't perfect. I was safe. And sometimes, people confuse safety with stagnation. If you asked me whether I still believe in love, I'd say yes. Not because I'm reckless, but because I know now that love isn't a guarantee. It's a choice, a practice, a fragile one. I'm dating again. Slowly, cautiously, nothing serious. Just moments of kindness shared with strangers who aren't carrying the weight of old stories. It feels strange, yes, but also clean. Untangled. Max is growing. He still laughs with his whole body. He still asks why I don't live with mommy, and I still say, because we're better parents when we're in separate houses. He accepts that. Kids are better at moving forward than we are. And me? I sleep through the night again. Sometimes I find that photo, the one from the shoot, the one that started it all, and I stare at that frozen glance between Margot and Alan. Back then, it felt like a warning. Now it just feels like proof. Proof that things were already broken long before I realized it. Proof that truth lives in the corners of our lives, always waiting to be seen. Proof that even the sharpest betrayals lose their edge with time. We survived it. All of us. Different, marked, but intact. And that, I think, is enough.